Hi guys, so today I'm using an external mic. I just need to be sure you guys can hear me because I'm not feeling too well and I wanted to be sure that everyone can hear me, so that's why I got an external mic. So please, if you can hear me, I cannot be looking amazing, I'm not feeling too well, but thank you. If you can hear me, please just type that you can hear me, so that okay, so yes, because I'm using an external mic just to help with my voice and all that. Thank you. So today we are going to be having a very wonderful session with my very good friend Olu of Canada, who just joined us now. And you can hear me. Great, thank you. And so what we're going to basically be doing is to talk to you about why I really love Canada, because of the smooth transition from being a student to PR and to being a citizen. So I'm just going to accept. Please, for you to ask questions, I might not be following through with the comments, but the best way to really the best way for you to send us your questions is if you look at the IG section, right? You see there is a plus sign. That's for video if you want to request, but that's not what we're doing. Then you see like a question mark, which is questions. Use that to drop your questions for Olu. So let's just dive in. Hi Olu, thank you very much. It is very nice to see your, I've been seeing your videos, but we have never had like a live session before. And I want to say thank you for, accepting to speak to us about your journey. Please
Thank you for having me.
just introduce yourself. Let me not talk too much. Make it look like say.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you from wherever you're joining us from today. My name is Olu. Some of you call me Olu of Canada. I came to Canada. It's going to be 8 years this year. And sometimes when I think about it, even that 8 years, it seems like yesterday, because I can still remember even like the shirt and the color of the jean I was wearing the first day I came to Canada. I came to Canada as an international student myself. Came originally for my master's and PhD at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, Canada. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. 8 years, even though it still feels like yesterday, but a lot has happened in that 8 years. I have had the opportunity of transitioning from being an international student, directly to becoming a permanent resident and then going on to become a Canadian citizen. I enjoy sharing information with people because I think access to information brings transformation. When you know a lot about things, you are able to make informed decisions. And of course, you are able to avoid some of the mistakes that some of us made when we were rookies and just coming into the country as well. So looking forward to everything we'll be talking about in the next 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. Because there's always a lot to talk about when it comes to Canada, but we won't take summer's time too much today.
Yes, because I'm not feeling fine though.
I think I
That's why
saw
I'm
that
using
in
an
your voice.
external mic, because my voice is a bit down.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Okay, guys, I don't know if you heard though. I'm seeing some people saying permanent resident. They're shouting, "He's a Canadian citizen." Let's just give him that his flowers. He's a Canadian citizen. But yes, Olu, I'm a bit curious. I know your story, but people here don't know your story. So, how did you even come about Canada when you were, trying to relocate? Well, did you not have a good job in Nigeria? Like, is it
I
like you
did,
just
though.
wanted? You did have a
I
good
did.
job.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the push?
I think for me, the interest has always been there to further my education. I did my bachelor's degree in Nigeria, went to Africa's most beautiful campus, ᴅɪsᴄᴏᴜ University in Ife. But I've always been a curious mind right from my university days. A lot of my colleagues that that went to university with me would attest to that. You know, I've always been very, very proactive when it comes to like personal development, you know, traveling around for student conferences, getting involved in internship, even as a student, you know, relating with people that have been there and done that even before us. So it has always been in my mind to go outside and do, you know, further studies at some point. But it wasn't immediate. Even at that time, it was always UK and US were the popular countries. You know, a lot of people were not coming to Canada. There were no individuals even providing information about Canada at that time. So a couple of years later, after I graduated from IFE, I was working in Ibadan. I'd completed my NYC and all that, and I was working in Ibadan then. And I tuned into the radio station one day, and I was listening to a program, and I had a program where they were talking about, you know, Canada is looking for people. Canada is looking for people to come and work. At that time, I never even imagined that it's possible to get jobs from Nigeria, like outside Nigeria. But I'd had it in mind that I was going to do my graduate study. So it came to my mind when I had that if they're looking for, and they mentioned Saskatchewan specifically, like, you know, some provinces in Canada are looking for people, you know, Saskatchewan and Manitoba and all those smaller provinces then. And it came to my mind and I said, you know, if they are looking for people to work in these places, they probably have universities. At that time, I've worked for like 3-4 years and I wanted to do my master's degree. So I went on Google. I did a Google search of like universities in Saskatchewan, and it gave me a list of University of Regina, University of Saskatchewan, a couple of other universities. And I'm like, okay, cool. And from there, I took it further, looked for the programs that are related to what I was interested in, looked at the admission requirements, of course, the funding part as well. You know, I was thinking, how would I even, who's going to pay, you know, thousands of dollars to fund my education and all that? And I saw like the scholarship opportunities that are available at the University of Saskatchewan and just kind of like took it from there. And that has formed the foundation of what I tell people when they're thinking of going abroad to study. I am a big fan of doing it yourself. I did my application myself, from looking for school, applying for admission, applying for visa. Even when I got to Canada, applying for permanent residency by myself, and also applying for Canadian citizenship myself, you know. And in those days, you don't even have as much information publicly available right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I mean, you said you were just listening to the news and then they said
it was just the news. Like I just had it on radio, on a radio program in Ibadan, and they were talking about looking for people. Like I did not even know anyone in Saskatchewan. I did not know how to pronounce Saskatchewan until I got to Canada, you know. Never knew anyone. It was just a journey of faith. And we're grateful to God for how far He has brought us. And just quickly before I forget, you know, that has formed the foundation of what I tell people all the time. You know, there are 4 key things you need to keep in mind. When I can see some of my friends that we were in Saskatchewan together when we were students, I can see Solomon's comments in the live session. But the 4 key things I tell people to keep in mind if you want to embark on this journey by yourself, you want to do it yourself. Number 1 is that you have to be curious. I'm going to use myself as an example. When I found that information about, like, Saskatchewan looking for people and all that, you know, I didn't stop at just listening or hearing about Saskatchewan. I had to be curious to know more about what are the other things that are available there. Google is the best place to start with some of these things, you know. You can always do a Google search. In those days, it was primarily Google that we were using. And you can find additional information. Be curious, be curious, be curious. If someone mentions something, let that curiosity drive you to do other things and know about that, which will be the second thing of taking initiative. So you have to be willing to take initiative to look for additional information, because some of these things are not things that people can do for you or do for you to the extent of what you can do for yourself. So the second thing is taking initiative to look for more information. The third thing of looking for more information is to do personal research. You have to be invested in the process of gathering information, filtering out information, knowing what is not applicable to your situation and what is applicable. And number 4 is you have to be strategic. Things have changed so much from when I was applying 8 years ago to how things are right now. Even if you look at the exchange rate, I applied to only 2 schools, got into the 2 schools, had to look for supervisors in those 2 schools, only sent out emails to 2 professors, and got accepted by those 2 professors. Things have changed now. You may have to send more than 1 email if your program requires you to look for a supervisor. But in those days, how many people were even applying? You understand? But even in applying, I was quite strategic. I had been able to narrow down the areas of research I was interested in. I, positioned myself in an area that a lot of those universities were funding. Universities in Canada have what we call signature areas of research. Those are the places that they dedicate a lot of funding to. If you do signature areas of research at the University of Saskatchewan right now, a Google search, you would see those areas. If it's University of Alberta, you see those areas. Now look at those areas and see what are the missing gap in knowledge that I can do a research to connect to and tap into available opportunities. So you have to be curious, you have to know how to take initiative, you have to do personal research because there's lots of information out there, and you have to learn how to strategically position yourself for some of these opportunities. So those were the things I did then, and to the glory of God, packaged my application to the best of my ability, submitted to the University of Saskatchewan, got the admission. A couple of weeks, I think about 2 weeks later, got a request from the school that they were nominating me for the Dean Scholarship, which was like the highest scholarship at the university at that time and would cover everything. So they asked me to submit additional information on my potential for research and publications and things like that. And I did that. And I think a week or 2 later, I got the letter of funding as well. Quickly, just to add, when you're applying to schools in Canada, in a lot of cases, you don't even need to apply for scholarships separately. In a lot of cases, it's not like other countries where you have to apply separately. Either you are getting research grant from your supervisor, or you are getting entrance scholarship from the university or your department and all that. But a lot of times, maybe like 95% of times, it's still the same admission document you've submitted that they would use to consider and evaluate you for available funding. Sometimes your supervisors may say, okay, I have additional grants. I want to give you so amount of money. If they are going to tie that to you being of service to the university or the school, maybe as a TA or RA or something like that, they would also let you know. But the best place to find additional information on some of these scholarships would be each university would have their finance section. There's always a finance section on the university website. That was how I found the scholarship at the University of Saskatchewan that even motivated me to apply back then. So even if you do a Google search, if you find any school you want to apply to, just say scholarships at the University of Saskatchewan, scholarship at the University of Calgary. Do a Google search. You'll find tons of information there. I saw a question here quickly. I'm going to address that. How do one get a supervisor? On university websites, on your program website, they would always list their faculty members there. You would see their areas of research. You would see their contact information. You want to do, let's say, master's degree in political science at the University of Saskatchewan. Once you locate the department of the program, you would see their faculty members listed. It's an open information, and their email addresses or phone numbers and all that. So the onus is now on you to put together things that would speak to who you are and reach out to those supervisors. In my own time, it was basically email. Put together my transcript, my resume, my research proposal, one-page proposal. It was just a one-page speaking to, this is the research I want to do, and I've looked at your area. I see you do research in this area. This is what I'm proposing. As a matter of fact, one of those professors got back to me and even was already correcting my proposal before I even apply. Like, I like what you're proposing, but I recommend maybe we can look at it this way. I didn't end up going to that school, so I hope the professor has forgiven me right now.
And just to add, like there's something similar about your process and it's just the same. It's just that you applied 8 years ago, or rather 9 years ago, and got here 8 years ago. I applied 4 years ago and got here 3 years ago. But then the thing is, when I applied to Saskatchewan, like for masters, it is not one page, so that people understand that research proposal now it's not becoming very competitive. Right. So like Olu applied with one-page research proposal 8 years ago and got it. Right now for masters, it's like, depending on your program, for law it was 5 pages. Right. In fact, even when I was considering maybe applying to the school for PhD, I saw 10 pages. I said the only school that would ask me to send 10 pages and I would send is University of Toronto, because I felt like U of T has a lot of money. You understand? I felt like they had a lot of money. So that if you're going to stress me, have a lot of money to give me. Because it's not going to be, because usually it's the same amount. I mean, I have a friend at University of Saskatchewan that did his master's there. I think you know him as well. We're mutual friends, Nemeka. Did his master's there, currently doing his PhD there. And it's the same amount that he got for his master's. That is, so I'm like, what is now the essence of giving you such a number? But my school was, for master's, it was 5 pages. So 2 pages, then for PhD is 5 pages. So right now it has become very competitive. Right. And just to add to how you can find supervisors, what you suggested is a very good way. But I feel like a lot of people just do this. They don't even read up about the supervisor. They just send an email, I saw you. You're not going to get a response. And that's why people say, I send emails, and I'm like, I bet you, if I go through the kind of cold emails you send out to these professors, I personally, I'm not being a professor yet. I won't even answer you. I'm not going to, if I look at you, I'll just move you to spam straight up. And there are some people that don't even use a correct subject. So before you even go and start contacting anybody, right, I tell people, research about these supervisors. They are on social media like you and I, Olu and myself. They are on Twitter, they are on LinkedIn. And right now, LinkedIn has become very professional in the sense that you can go and pick that name, put on LinkedIn, follow them, you'll be shocked, they'll even follow you back. And when it doesn't even end there, you need to read their articles now. If, for instance, you're coming to meet Olu and you're coming to ask Olu some very petty questions, he will feel like you have never done your research. You've not even done your research. Exactly, because I want to come to Canada, how can you guide me? And I'm like, on my social media pages, I have a website, like, all the guidance you need is already there. Exactly. So that is how professors, especially those in academia, they have this joy when someone says, I read your article. Because we are looking for people to read our article. Let me just tell you, we are looking for, you know how you take all the time to write your article and then people might not even respond because some people feel like all those academic write-ups are boring. So when someone is telling you, I read your article, it doesn't end there, because now people just say, I read your article. They just highlight your topic for you. And that's what did you read? What did you get out of it? What did you understand? What are your observations? Exactly. Yeah. So people need to do a lot of work. It doesn't just stop at, I read your article, right? What article? What did you get from that article? How does it align with your area of interest? Some people just want to japa, and I understand that the country is hard, right? But I also try to encourage people to do the work. See, if you cannot do the work, that is why most people go for course-based programs that don't require research. Which means I feel like do the one that you can do. If you cannot do research, because research-based programs are tougher than course-based programs. That is why you see someone doing a master's program for 4 years in Canada or 3. Why? Because your supervisor is probably saying this your topic is not going to fly, or you need to go and do more research. So I keep telling people that I applied 4 years ago and I got in 3 years ago. It is now very, very competitive.
Of course.
Olu applied 8 years ago. The same process is now, the scrutiny is too much. The scrutiny is too much. Even some schools will say, oh, we need English test. Although now Nigerians have been, you know, some schools have said, okay, Nigerians are waived because our first language is English. Exactly. So we need to like really package our documents in such a way that when anybody's picking up your document, they'll ask themselves, why should we not give this person this amount of money over this other person? Now, before I go further, Olu, you know, we've been talking about fully funded scholarships and all of that, but I'm a bit curious. What was were you a first class candidate? So that people here would kind of understand. When I tell people, I didn't graduate with the first class, and I got a fully funded scholarship for my master's, got a fully funded scholarship for my PhD. It is not Nigerian first class that helped me. I didn't even get a first class, right? So that people hearing us can understand and know that it is not necessarily about your grade when you want to get funding, but about the work that you've put in. So please, did you graduate with the first class? Or
no, I did not. I did not graduate with the first class as well. I finished with a 2-1. It was a 4 point something. Can't remember precisely right now. Maybe like 4.40 or something like that, 4.46. But it was close to a first class, but it wasn't the first class. But what I noticed in my own situation was the fact that University of Saskatchewan, it's a combination of factors, about 5 factors they put into consideration when they're admitting you. Your grade, especially in the last 2 years of study, not necessarily graduating with a first class overall. So they will tell you a minimum of 70% overall, and then last 2 years, I think maybe 80% or so, or 85% was the requirement for the Dean Scholarship. I can't remember right now, 80 or 85%. They place more emphasis and focus on that last 2 years because they believe that's the year you're doing programs that are related to your courses that are related to your bachelor's degree. You understand? So even if like your first year, second year are not that great, the last 2 years you've done significant. I did well in my last 2 years. All my coursework were all A, back to back, 300 and 400 level, which eventually helped. Number 2 thing they look out for is your statement of purpose. Very, very important. That's the opportunity to sell yourself to the admission committee. Even if you did not do exceedingly well in your grade, they want you to talk about like your passion for the program. What have you done with the degree you had in the past, and what are you bringing on board to the program as well. Your statement of purpose and all that is very, very important. The third thing they look out for is your resume. And a lot of these universities already have guidelines on how or what they want their university, the resume you're submitting for your application to look like. If you do a Google search of like resume sample at the University of Saskatchewan, you will see this thing. It's on Google. Any other university you want to go to, just put their name and put resume sample or CV guide. You would see the information they've provided on that. The fourth thing they look out for is your reference letter. Who are the people writing recommendation letters for you? How are they able to speak to your competence, your readiness, and your ability to do well in a rigorous graduate program? You understand? Because to be honest, especially if you're doing a research-based program, it's a lot of work. You have to do independent research, not copy and paste, not plagiarized work. You have to be able to independently articulate your thoughts and your arguments, and do independent research that will contribute to the body of knowledge. So that's the fourth thing. The last thing they look out for, what's that right now? Can't remember how many things, but I've talked about like your grade in the last 2 years, your resume, your statement of purpose, your reference letter, and then your proposed research if you're doing a research-based program. Being able to, like Summer mentioned, look at the requirements for your program right now. Is it 2-page? Is it 3-page? What do they want you to cover? And being able to articulate and say, this is the unique research I am coming to do, and this is what will contribute to the body of knowledge, because those are the things they put into consideration overall. So I've seen instances where people had first class and did not even get in.
They did not.
Canada,
like, when I was applying,
yeah,
I know that we had over. I had a 2-1. Your 2-1 is even strong. My 2-1 was not even strong. And when we were all applying, I said, this school, University of Victoria, first of all, is good at serving breakfast. Let me just clear them. They are very strict. They sure they only admit not more than 6 people.
Right.
So you could see that in a master's program, you guys will be 6, and then in PhD 6. So they just want 12, sometimes 10 in a cohort. They feel like having a lot of people is just too much, right? So when we were applying, we had just, I know how many people from Nigeria was applying to my school. And when the admission, they were giving rejections first. I feel like they serve breakfast first. So people were getting, I'm not saying, hey, God, maybe it's my turn. Or maybe I want to tell me that I'm not getting. And there was this person that had a first class. Her first class was like 4.8. If we're looking at grade, that person had to have gotten that spot than myself. But I knew what I put in there, for crying out loud. I know it took me at least 13 months to do my research. And when I mean research, this is also contacting professors.
Right.
Professor, I'm not calling his name, but professor at the University of Saskatchewan. He even told me, I can see your zeal. Look, he was even helping me, telling me, okay, you know what? Because you're in Nigeria, you might not have access to our laws. And he gave me access, told me, add this and that. This is for a university that I don't know anybody, and like I do not know the professor. I just got, it's like, oh, see, since you're writing on it, because I wrote on indigenous law, I think that was even what kind of helped me, because as a Nigerian writing on indigenous law, I have never been taught that. There is no university, quote me anywhere, that is teaching indigenous law. So where did I come about indigenous law? How did I come about that? How did I even start researching about it? So it was very, I'm sure I was not even drew their eyebrows, like, who is this person? Right? Now, the second, my school, Professor John, let me just put like that. He is the one that, when I sent him as you know, professors are busy. So you don't expect them to respond immediately you send an email. I think that's one thing about us. We are very impatient. We need them to respond ASAP. But this man responded immediately. And this man has been a professor for over 35 years. So I was not even expecting a response. He said, I love your research proposal and I would love to work with you. I said, eh? He said, even if, because he said, I have a lot of people that always want to use me, but even if I'm not available, there are more than 5 professors in the faculty that want to work with.
Interesting.
So it was as if they were even dragging who would supervise summer, because my research was on indigenous and it was on a trending Canadian case. It was already in the Supreme Court of Canada, you know, so it was an issue. So how did I even come about that? Research. You cannot just come now, because everybody was applying for international human rights. That is as a lawyer, that is what everybody's applying for. So I wanted to be different. I wanted to make sure that my application would be high. I knew that it would take me then, and also because my grade, I felt like my grade was 2-1, but it wasn't high. I needed to do other things to boost my application. I knew that before I would get my documents approved, like publications to be like my articles to be published, it takes a lot of time. So instead of wallowing in, I don't have any publication, why not just submit your articles to all these blogs? Like, for instance, lawyers who have Nigerian lawyer blogs and all of that, right? So why not just submit to them? I did that, and I had the links in my CV. So even if you see that this person doesn't have a proper publication, you can see that this person has that zeal to write.
To write and express themselves.
Because these people actually look at these things. People think, I don't have publication. Don't do that, though. There are a lot, even Lagos, that's one of the things I like about Lagos. Lagos has departments that have reviews. So if you're, let me say, in political science, go to the political science review department, submit it. It usually takes between 3 to 4 months. Submit your article, make sure that you, because see, it is now very competitive. See, it's like because I was among the committee that tried to like admit a lot of people two years ago, And what I noticed that they do, it's like a hierarchy. Your name and every single point they're looking for is outlined. So if you have a first class or a 2-1, that has automatically given you a specific number of points.
Right.
Now, if you now have, let's say you don't have a 2-1 and a 2-2 and a first class and a 2-1, but your last 2 years is first class and 2-1, they give you a specific number of points. Now they go to the next thing. The next one is your CV. They look at your CV and see if you are just, they're not interested. See, I feel like people just write irrelevant things. And people just, you know what, I'm sure you've seen CVs now, and you've seen some documents, you'll be like, this person is not ready. This person is not ready. Because if you're ready, you will know. And that's how people perceive your documents. When they look at your documents, even the fonts, I tell people, fonts, they change person mood.
Right.
Your font and your alignment, because they bring it out in a system. So maybe someone used their phone, and yes, I understand why everybody has a laptop. Go to a cyber cafe. Go to the days when we make excuses. Go to a cyber cafe. Look, make sure that your CV is in a PDF format. So people upload Word format. Word, and when you just put it in anything, it will scatter.
Right.
So they look at your CV. If your CV does not even have a research experience, it's a problem. Because they don't even know where to fix you.
Right.
So they look at your CV before they look at your statement of purpose, before they even look at your... So it is a stage by stage kind of thing. Now, when they get to your statement of purpose, they're trying to see the connection between your SOP. So statement of purpose is also known as SOP for some of us that don't know. So they look at your SOP and your CV to see if there's a connection. I remember reviewing one document one time, and the babe said she's a nurse. And in her CV, what she was saying is that she's the CEO of a beauty store. How does that, for someone that is applying for scholarship, how does that connect? And you applying for business administration, an MBA program. That is when that will come up, that you're a CEO. He will have, do you understand? So if you don't know that, oh, she was a care support giver, and so, these are things that people don't know that they look out for. Now, research proposal, that is where the head of this scholarship is, right? Because when they look at it, they will look at if it's something that the university is interested in. That's why people need to do research. Right. Because I can bet you that if you did not do your research and you submitted, the supervisor will see you as one of those people who did not do their
generic
research.
Applications.
Exactly. Yeah. So you did your research and you knew that, oh, for this to happen, you have to do this and do that. Imagine if I had written indigenous law at the University of Toronto, it wouldn't have. I'm sure at that time it would not fly. But University of Victoria, University of Saskatchewan, there are universities that don't joke with this area. University of Alberta as well. There are people that don't joke with anything indigeneity. They don't joke with it, right? So I knew that it was going to fly. But now, they look at your research proposal and say, okay, why is this? So that means your SOP also shows why you're interested in the course and that area. Now, the next question is there any supervisor available for this person? And once they do that, they will now check what you wrote in your application, the names of because they will ask you to list someone you would like to work with. Now, if you don't list somebody that apparently you have not spoken to, it will take the grace of God for that person to say yes.
Right.
But if you've had a relationship with this person via email, the person is obviously, if you pass all these stages, exactly, and your document gets to this person, automatically the person will say, yes, I want to work with this person. So this is how the thing works behind closed doors. And I keep telling people, once your SOP, your CV, and your research proposal is good, you will get that funding. So just so that we don't really flag the issue, because people say, oh, I've seen people that asked us about, someone said I'm lost. My darling, no, if you're lost, you have to actually
find yourself. Because if you did not get the admission, how do you want to transition from study to PR? And it's just part of what someone mentioned earlier, pay attention, be patient, listen to important information we are talking about. You are only able to transition from study to PR to citizenship after you've gotten here as a student. So we are analyzing and explaining the process that the admission goes through before you even get an admission. And you are saying, you are impatient to listen to what we are talking about. But sorry to cut you short, but we're just talking about like the admission process, like the things that the review committees put into consideration when they are making a decision for you to even be admitted before you can now apply for visa, before you get here and say you now want to transition into PR and becoming a citizen.
Yeah,
Citizen.
and also someone asked a question that I'm sure every other person is, going. Someone said, what do I do if I contact a supervisor and the person does not respond? Now, there are two things. It's that the person did not see it, or the person saw it, but the person does not have funding and does not want to tell you that they don't have funding. So the best they can do is to ignore you. However, what would you do? You have two options. One, I always tell people, give a specific period of time. Some people expect professors to respond to them in 1 week. No, people are busy. They have other students that they are supervising. They have other classes that they teach. They have other personal engagement. Some of them are probably, sometimes people don't do your research even though some people are on sabbatical leave. That is another thing. Because if someone is on sabbatical leave, if you like, send email from now to tomorrow, they will not open that email until they return back.
Right.
So sometimes they even go on 1 year sabbatical leave. So why are you even sending an email to such a person? Sometimes you have never done your research to find out that this person has never supervised anybody. How are you sure that it is you that the person, because the person does not have that capacity, and capacity we're talking about is funding. Right. Because how professors get students are by virtue of the number of funding they brought to the university. So these are things that you need to check out. But then if you don't get a response, after 1 month, I say send a gentle reminder. When you send a gentle reminder and you don't get a response, I tell people, just
reach out to other people.
Don't waste your. That's why I say when you apply for scholarship, it takes time. So you need to give yourself at least. That's why I say it took me 13 months. I did research because I was researching on something that was completely different from what I've ever studied in my life. So I needed to pay attention. And in short, I did my draft several times. I kept on writing and rewriting, and so it will take time. But if you send an email to a professor, let's say all your documents are good, you send an email to them, they don't respond, please send to other people. There are so many professors in other universities in Canada. Only will tell you focus on U15 schools in Canada. Me, the University of Victoria is not among, I don't even know why they did not include that school. But once you just put your area of research and put Canadian universities, it will pop up. So let's just dive into how was your whole story when you came into Canada as a student? I mean, the writing style is different. Everything is different. Right. How are you able to cope? And then how did you, and I'm sure when you came in as a very curious person that you are, how did you start thinking about PR? Right. Because I know that your part of your story and that of my friend was that even before you people finished your masters, you guys have already applied for PR and got it. Right. Some people don't believe that these things are possible, but these things are very, very, very possible. I mean, 8 years ago, that was when things were very, in short, that was when Canada loved you people because
I used to say something, and I tell people that those of us that came in 2015 are IRCC's favorite international student. The reason why I say that is that the 2015 when we came was when Express Entry started, So Express Entry started January 2015. I came August 2015. Again, curiosity. From the first time of arriving in Canada, we started planning to what life would look like upon the completion of our program. We were connecting with people that are already on ground and that have more information than us about some of those things. So it was part of the people I connected with. I never knew about Express Entry or PR before I got to Canada. Transparently, I know that, after my school, I can get a postgraduate work permit of up to 3 years and all that, but never knew about transitioning to PR even before completing my master's degree. But I was fortunate, the friends I made in Saskatchewan, people told us about Express Entry then. The cutoff was also low, and it was beneficial because I had worked like 3-4 years in Nigeria before I came. So I qualified under the Federal Skilled Worker category of Express Entry, which was what I used, because with that, you don't need to have completed your education in Canada. You don't need to have worked in Canada because you are not using the Canadian Experience class. All you need is that you have to evaluate your bachelor's degree from back home, using any of the assessment organization, and then write your language test in IELTS or self-PIP if it's English. For those who do not like hearing this, you cannot escape it. As long as you want to become a permanent resident in Canada and you are applying yourself, you have to write the language test. The only people that are exempted from writing that are people that are being sponsored. You are the spouse of someone who is a PR or a citizen, and they are sponsoring you for PR. You don't even need work experience or language test or degree assessment, because you are not applying yourself, you are being sponsored. You understand? So whether you're a master's student, whether you are PhD, whether you are PGD, whether you are graduate certificate, whether you are undergraduate, when you complete your program in Canada or before completing your program, if you find any PR route you are eligible for, you can apply, except to get a scholarship that requires you to go back home at the completion of your program. You know, there are certain government scholarships like that that would require you to go back home after you finish your program. But if there's nothing like that, you can always, and I tell people, there are 3 plans you should make before you even come to Canada. Your study plan to identify the right programs that would probably give you funding that would align with what you've done in the past or what you do professionally or the areas you want to transition into. The second plan is your career plan, because education is an investment. You are not coming to Canada or US or UK or wherever you're going to do a program that you will not get a job, or that the job is so scarce, or that the job is not well paid for you. The third one is now that transition plan. You know, do French students need to write a language test too? Yes, they do. Whatever you are studying in Canada, either you're writing the language test for English or for French. Any PR route you're applying for, you need to write the language test. So the third plan is knowing what are your immigration options if the desire for you is to stay back and be a PR. In Canada, there are more than 100 immigration routes. What is applicable to person A is different from what person B can use. So it's now left to you to identify, do you need a provincial nomination? Do you need you know, to apply for PR using express entry? Do you need to evaluate your previous degree? Are you going to any of the 11 communities for rural and northern immigration pilot program? Do you need to get a job offer for your own application? Are you going to Atlantic Canada and you'll be eligible for Atlantic immigration program? You need to find out which of those programs. In my own time and for mine, I used the express entry and the federal skilled worker. Can you write your IELTS before leaving Nigeria? Can you write it in Canada? You can write it anywhere, as long as it's valid. So your language test validity is 2 years. As long as it is valid as of the time you are applying, that is what matters to Canada. If you know that in your own case, you've looked at your profile, when I looked at mine then, I knew I didn't even need to finish my program. Finishing your program in Canada would give you additional points. If it's a graduate certificate, 2 years or 1 year, you get 15 additional points for studying in Canada. If it's a master's or PhD, you get 30 additional points. But if you look at your profile and it looks like, you know, I even have enough points, I don't have to work in Canada or or finish my study in Canada before applying. Keep in mind, like I said, except you have a scholarship that says you must go back home. If there's nothing like that, you can apply anytime, which was what we did in our own time. We looked at our points, we calculated, and I was okay with my first degree, my 3-4 years experience. If I'm able to write my language test and pass very well, I am good to go. And that was what your friend also, you know, did back then in Saskatchewan, you know, because as we got a hold of those information, everyone coming behind us were just telling them, looking at your profile, and the cutoff them were ridiculously low. You know, as of 2017 May, 2016 or 2017 May, the cutoff was still as low as 413. You understand? With that, with your bachelor's degree, 1 year of work experience, passing IELTS very well, you probably have like 420 something.
Exactly.
So
but now the scores are just on.
Cutoff has gone up, but it's still something to always look out for and know your options early enough. I'm going to give you an example of what happened in my in 2021. They opened a pathway, the TR to PR pathway, wanted to accept 90,000 people. 40,000 out of that was for international students that have completed their program in Canada. When they opened that, it got filled up within 24 hours. They got 40,001 applications within 24 hours. We're tracking it that day, you know, and that was people that they've prepared themselves ahead, because the analysis are the documents you would need and all that. So you have to be on the lookout for those information. If you know that is what you are here for, your interest is to transition to PR, you must know at least 3 PR programs you can tap into out of the more than 100 programs that are available in Canada. Another example was the Canadian Experience Class Draw they did, I think also in 2021. We used to advise people, even if your score is low, still open your profile and get into the Express Entry pool. If you have to rewrite your language test, as long as you have enough to get into the pool, do that. They went into the pool that day, I think it was February 2021 or something, I can't remember correctly, and they did a draw and invited 27,000 people. The cutoff they used was 75. That was for Canadian Experience Class. It has never gone that low. You know, all of us were thinking, or did they make a mistake or something like that, you know, and then they had to issue a clarification that yes, it was not a mistake. They went into the Express Entry pool and they packed everyone who had a valid profile, and they used the cutoff of 71. I'm trying to find the date right now. I think it was February. Yeah, February 13, 2021, they invited 27,332 individuals.
Wow.
You have to
75.
Yeah, and they used a cutoff of 75. That was specifically Canadian Experience Class. And Canadian Experience Class of Express Entry is for people who have worked at least 1 year in Canada on a valid work permit upon the completion of their program. So go to CIC, www.cic.gc.ca, go under the permanent residence section, go on my own website. I have more than 40 programs I've explained their application processes, the requirements for each. www.olufemiloye.ca. Start reading, start preparing yourself, and know what you are eligible for and can tap into as well.
Great, thank you, Olu. So just a quick question. Someone asked this question. Someone said, what's my, I think person is 50-51, person is asking, am I eligible for Express Entry? I know there's age issue, but yeah.
They may still be eligible, but the score will be ridiculously low because of the age. Once you cross 29 and become 30, you start losing 5 points for any age above 29. 35 point, 31 5 point, 32 5 point, on and on and on like that. So at 50, you would have lost a lot of points. However, there are ways you can use to increase your points. One of it is provincial nomination. So even if you are able to get into the Express Entry pool at 50, even if your score is as low as 300, if you get a nomination from a province, that gives you 600 additional points. If you add 600 to whatever your score is, it shoots up your score. There's no draw they want to make or do that you will not be eligible for. You understand? So it's now left to you to go and identify the province that you are eligible for, you know. What province are you eligible for? Because the way I like to put it is that in Canada, we have 10 provinces and 3 territories. Each of those provinces do their things differently. The requirement for provincial nomination in Saskatchewan is not the same in Ontario. It's not the same in British Columbia. The things you need will depend on each province. Go sit down after this call, just list out all of those 10 provinces and go to Google and say, requirements for provincial nomination in Saskatchewan, requirement for provincial nomination in Alberta. You will see the differences and you'll be able to identify. You have to be, like I said, you have to be committed to this journey and know what you're eligible for. And just free information, free advice. I have my own personal top 5 provinces I tell people to look at, because I haven't looked at their different requirements. I think those provinces, things are a bit straightforward and easier in those provinces. Look at Saskatchewan. I'm a proud Saskatchewan boy. Proud prairie boy. Look at Saskatchewan. look at Manitoba, look at New Brunswick, look at Ontario, look at Alberta. The reason why I like Ontario and Alberta is because those ones go into the express entry pool themselves to issue notification of interest. They look at your profile and they say, oh, we are interested in you, apply for nomination. Alberta specifically invites people with as low as 300 CRS score from the express entry pool. Look at their requirement. Even in all those provinces, there are also different categories of nomination. In Ontario alone, there are like 10 different nomination categories. There's the French speaker category, there's the human capital priorities category, there's an employer job offer international student stream category, there's an employer job offer in-demand skill category, there's an employer job offer foreign skilled worker category. There are so many different categories. If we're talking about nomination alone, we can spend 6 hours talking about each of them.
And then another thing about like BC, I know people don't really talk about BC, but the good thing about BC is for techies. Like if you're into tech, just be targeting British Columbia because they will just give you that nomination. Like, I know someone, I'm sure you know the person as well, that got nominated by BC just because person was into tech. I think it was a Scrum Master or something, right? So these are things that people should also look out for. Currently, I think there's this new juicy package about Alberta. You know, before in Manitoba, if you have a friend,
it's still available till now in Manitoba.
Alberta just added that, right? So that's
Alberta just added relatives as well.
So if you know anybody, that's why a lot of people say, "Ask somebody in Alberta now, shall give us." I'm like, can you just hold on first? But like the point is, Alberta is another good place people should also consider. The reason I like Saskatchewan is not all this things you're telling me. To be very honest, I like Saskatchewan because it's a very affordable province to live in. When I hear the amount you guys pay for
buying
accommodation, I scream because BC ate all my money. Never. So I think we're paying for the weather in BC because BC is very warm. It's just like, you know, you're in Nigeria, right? It's not hot, but it is warm. We beg for snow in BC. We beg for snow. Now, so I heard that you guys in Saskatchewan pay like $400.
Not anymore. Also, you BC people are moving in, so we are blocking our border.
But it can never be like what BC charges.
Right.
It can never be like what even those in Toronto. That's the worst. If you're going to Toronto, that means you want all your money to finish. So that's one of the reasons I like Saskatchewan. I think that was also one of the reasons I wanted that school, because even if they give you $20,000 as scholarship, it's more than enough.
Right.
Exactly.
And the tuition is also cheap there.
Yes. Yes. You can find, especially research-based programs, you can find tuition fees of $4,000, at least $6,000 a year.
Right.
Sometimes you see their tuition fees are like, is this real?
When I came to University of Saskatchewan, my tuition a year was $4,000 or $4,500.
My goodness. Yeah. I swear. And if you do not build houses in Nigeria, I will change it. I used for what? That is not possible.
$4,000 or $4,500, but it wasn't even up to $5,000. And even then, they allowed us to pay monthly. So you could set up a monthly payment of maybe like, I think $700 per month for 6 months. So you could pay for 6 months per month, so that if you are on a scholarship and they're paying you, let's say, maybe $2,000 per month, you just set it up and say, when my money comes in, just remove $700 and pay school fees out of it and give me my 1,000 whatever.
And this what you just said now is something that the mistake I made when I came to Canada. I was always like, you know, you're allowed to pay. There's monthly and there's per term. I didn't know about the monthly because they don't really talk about it. So when they give me my scholarship, plus I applied for external funding, so I had so much money. So once the money just come, I'll just pay. I'll just pay. But since they say, even if I have that money, I told them I wanted a monthly payment plan. Not because the money was not in my account, but I was like, why are you doing this? Then you can use your money and do other things. What I started doing was, once they pay me my money, they give me my money, it's already in my account. So every month, I just do automatic payments. So it's usually like $700 or even less, depending on the year. Because each year it changes because I might not be writing a number of courses, right? So these are things that people should even understand. And even if you're not coming through the scholarship route, just so that for people that want to come to Canada, there is most universities have monthly payment plan. Ask them for that. It will save you a lot of stress of trying to pay your tuition for 4 months at once. Because if you're working, let's say you get a job at McDonald's, I'm not here to shade anybody, but if you get there, because me, I refuse to do all those jobs. I say, well, I'd rather do research assistant and TA. That will help my CV more.
Right.
But I also did not learn. That's another thing about me. I will tell you the one I did and how it helped me and how it did not help me. Now, people that worked outside of school, meaning people that had to work at McDonald's or were what's customer care services, if they wanted to apply for PR without federal school, but with Canadian Express class, or to show that you have that, they qualified more than I did, because they don't regard RA and TAs as experience on that job. So it was as if I was just working to get money, but not necessarily help myself in terms of PR, right? So if you're getting paid outside or inside school, whichever way you decide, if you look at the amount that they pay you, unless at the end of the month your take home is 3K, and your school fees for 4 months is telling you around 3.5, that means you will not pay rent. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So that means you not a lot of things. But if you're doing that monthly plan that allows you to pay between 700 800, and you're getting 3K at the end of the month, maybe you pay the 800 and you have 2.2. You'll be able to do your grocery shopping. Right. You'll be able to pay your rent. If your rent is under 1K, which I advise if you're an international student, please always make sure that your rent is under 1K. In short, if people can even be 3 in a flat or an apartment or 2, just make sure that you're sharing bills. Some people are paying 600. So if they're sharing, so it's 1 2. So if they're sharing, that's like 600. Utilities included. All those things. It's not like in Nigeria where we like to live big man life. We try to drive the best cars. Those things don't matter here. Focus. By the time you've gotten all the necessary things that you need to like become that big guy. Exactly. So, but make sure you go for monthly payment plans. I keep telling people that when I found out about that for my PhD, I was happy, because every month I just see, they just took 700 from my account. I'm happy. Than that bulk money that just leaves my account. No matter the amount of scholarship you give me, I feel it. I'm like, even though it's free money, I'm angry. Right? So always go for monthly payment plans, whether it's a course-based program that you're coming for, or which you're going to fund yourself, or you're coming for scholarship, because it will help you. It will help you to save. Then another thing I like about Saskatchewan is that a lot of Nigerians are there, but not so much. People are not as loud as people in Toronto. And what I like about Saskatchewan, you people help yourself. There's a community.
Because we have a closed community.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's easier for us to know each other and pass information.
Exactly. That's one of the, I swear that was why I wanted to come to Saskatchewan. Going to BC is like on its own. When I tell people that the reason I left BC to come to Calgary is because Calgary is another place where you can find community of Nigerians that help themselves. In BC, you're more or less like on your own, because a lot of people are busy. You hardly even see Nigerians, right? So that is one of the reasons that before you apply to any school, check those provinces. Are they Nigerians or anybody that are similar to your country that you would like to ask questions from? So if, let's say for instance, you're going to Saskatchewan, you already know your go-to person is Olu of Canada. If you're saying, I want to come to Calgary, there's University of, if you want to come to Alberta, there's University of Alberta, there's University of Calgary. Just know that I'm not in those schools, but I am in Calgary. If you want to go to BC, you can go to me and say, son, I know that you went to, your schools are in BC. What and what should I? So network, people just use their phones for dragging people who are not doing a certain thing or not voting for a certain person. You should know now, I don't have that time. If you just come to my timeline and I saw those things, I'll block you, because there are better things to use your data. I came to Calgary last year, and I will tell you that the number of people I've communicated with are a lot, because there are a lot of Nigerians here. Toronto, the same thing. A lot of people you can connect with. So don't make the mistake of even going to get scammed for accommodation. I know someone that paid through was Airbnb and was scammed. Why? You did not go and do your research to know the international students in that area. If for instance you tell Oluna, I'm coming to Saskatchewan, please he will send you links. verified links. He will tell you, oh, these are the things that you should look out for. If you have any questions, let me know. That is how it works. But if you just say, oh, I saw this one, they told me that it is $700, you pay, then your money will go. Because $700 in Canada is a lot of money. So, anyways, that is for PR and a little bit of back and forth. But
just some things quickly about like people. There was a question I saw. I think I've lost it. Let me see if I can find it. You know, someone was asking what's the PR pathway for those who go there for their masters. Any pathway you are eligible for, whether express entry, whether AIPP, whether RNIP, any pathway that you're eligible for. There's no specific one, whether it's provincial nomination and all that. And someone also asked if they can apply for provincial nomination or get provincial nomination from outside Canada. The answer is yes. Because when I talked earlier, I said there are even different categories of nomination in each of those provinces. There are some that are specifically for people that are outside even Canada. You don't need to be in Canada and all that. And then there are student categories of nomination in some of those provinces. Like Saskatchewan, for instance, they have a student category of nomination that you only need 6 months after your study. Once you've worked for 6 months after your study, you qualify for that. In British Columbia, for instance, they have a student category of nomination that is for people in STEM. Those ones don't need to do, they don't need a job offer, they don't need anything. If you've done the designated programs in science, technology, engineering, and all those areas, they have those specific courses. Because I have a friend who did, I think he did public health at a university in BC, and he got that nomination through that. So, like I said, list out all those provinces, start from Google search. If you go on my website, I have some information on those things as well, www.ᴜɪsᴜᴜ.ca. Do your search, list out each of those areas. In Nova Scotia, you would see the ones that are available. Just say Nova Scotia Provincial Nominee Program. If you type that on Google, it will take you to their website. All the provinces in Canada have their provincial nominee programs, and they have the things they are interested in. Someone just left a comment that he also got the BC nomination.
It was Sam I was talking about, yes.
Right. So those things are out there. It's left to you. So he did a master's in food science. You know, it's left to you to tap into those opportunities.
And also, like, I think, because I already know that a lot of us don't like to read, so let me openly beg Olu that I'll bring Olu back to come and talk to us strictly on PR, because I feel like some people learn more when they hear us talk about it than reading. And I've noticed that. So I'm going to speak to Olu as to when he will have time again for us to have a session strictly for PR.
Because when we get public holiday, the reason why there's time today is because there's public holiday today.
I'm telling you, a very long one at that. So yes, we'll pray. We'll look at sometime in March and see if we can bring Olu on board to speak to us about PR. But then let's talk about your citizenship, because Itioko, it is not it's not a small thing, right? And so when did you know that you were eligible to apply for citizenship? What was it like? I mean, like, before we go into your first reaction when you got approved and all of that, when you got your first passport, your first travel, because Olu likes to travel, he's an enjoyment minister. So please, let us know, please. Thank you.
I mean, so when you get your PR in Canada, generally, you need 3 years after PR to be eligible for citizenship. 3 years of accumulated stay in Canada. However, as international students or temporary workers, we only need 2 years, because part of the time you spent in Canada as an international student on your work permit, you can count up to 1 year towards that citizenship, which means you don't need 3 years, you only need 2 years. That's why for some of us that were previously international students and all that, our citizenship looks expedited. However, when I applied for mine, I applied in 2019 and COVID started. It was meant to take just maybe 6 or 8 months max to get my citizenship, but I applied, I think, December 2019 or so, and by March 2020, COVID started. So my application was pending. My citizenship application was my longest IRCC application. My study permit took 6 weeks. My PR application took 30 days. My citizenship took 21 months because of like the COVID situation and all. But I mean, I was already in Canada, so I knew that one day they would call me and all that. So the process that follows is that you will track your physical presence calculator. You calculate your physical presence in Canada. Once you have up to that number of years you need to be eligible for citizenship, you make your citizenship application. When they go through all the process, it's easier now. Back then, it was also paper application. Now you can apply for citizenship online. So there's an online application portal for that. They review your application. If everything goes well, they now invite you to take the citizenship test. So even the citizenship test is now online. So they give you the date to take the test and everything. You do it online. Once you pass your citizenship test, you now do the oath of citizenship. They give you a date for you to come and do your oath of citizenship. That's the ceremony. And then when you do the ceremony, you cut your PR card, they send you your citizenship certificate. When you get your citizenship certificate, you now apply for your passport. I think maybe for me, because it took so long, the excitement was, I'm just like, you guys give me what I'm waiting for and let me be going. So, but I mean, it feels good. I have traveled a lot of times on my Canadian passport, and it's actually different. There's passport privilege. I have to be honest with you. The fact that I can go to 180-something countries and not even think of visa. That's why I travel a lot, because I just wake up one day and I'm like, let me go for one weekend. And all you have to bother about is just book flights and maybe hotel accommodation, and you are off. And anytime you come back, they will say welcome home, because Canada is now home for you.
And what do they tell you when you have your PR? What do they?
So when you have your PR, they say welcome to Canada. When you get your citizenship, they say welcome home.
Then when you're a student,
you get to you're welcome home. You are welcome is what they will tell you. But yeah, so that's just that. And I saw a question that somebody said, what does the citizenship test entail?
Yeah,
it's just testing your knowledge about what you know about Canada. You know, they test your knowledge. There's a citizenship, I think they call it citizenship test guide or something like that, that they use to, like, you can order it, it's free, it's online, you can order paper and all that. You just read about like current affairs, things happening in Canada, the political side and all those things. And when you do the test, they give you 20 questions. You must get 16 over 20, at least maybe 15 or 16, I can't remember. 15. You must get 15, right? You must get 15 over 20 to be eligible for citizenship. If you fail, they may invite you for an interview, but I've never seen anyone fail citizenship. I don't know, but because it's just test of like Canadian history, Canadian current affairs, and all those things. And it's objective, so they give you options. You choose your objective. Like somebody I've never seen anyone that has failed it. But if you fail, I think they would allow you to do it a second time. If you fail a second time, I think they will call you for interview.
Great. You know. So thank you. I know, for instance, I told you like to travel, and that's one of the benefits of having a second passport that is very strong, right? And that is one of the reasons I love Canada, because of the smooth transition. As a student who just came here to invest in your future, you're able to go from being holding your study permit to becoming a permanent resident, to becoming a citizen.
And a lot of us did it in like 5-6 years. If it wasn't for COVID, you know, 5 years of coming as a student, lost about so many things, and you are already like a citizen.
So, exactly. So it's more or less like you've just become a citizen. Just tell yourself, oh, if I am not, for us now that a lot of things are happening as to why you cannot join the pool. No, you can join the pool, or as to why you've not gotten, invitation to apply. Just tell yourself that so long as I have my postgraduate work permit, I'm eligible to remain in Canada. I must get a yes. for PR. There are a lot of people that want to come, they don't want to come through the study route. That's fine. Like I said, I'll still discuss with Olu. We must have this section where we'll teach people about PR, because PR comes with a lot of benefits. So Olu, let me just go back a bit. When you got your PR, what was the difference between PR and being a student?
So many differences. Number one is that once you become a PR, your tuition drops immediately. Even if you have scholarship, it's not affecting your scholarship, but your tuition drop. International students pay 3, 4, 5 times more than what local students pay. So as long as you're still, I was still enrolled in school when I got my PR. It's just a matter of going to the university and letting them know that your status has changed. So if it's still within the time that they can recalculate your tuition, they will recalculate it and give you a refund, or they would start applying the new status to the following term. You understand? So that's number one. Number two is also that there are so many countries that even having a PR will give you access to. You understand? As a PR, that normally, let's say for me that I'm originally a Nigerian, there are some countries I just can't travel to with a Nigerian passport without a visa. But if I have a PR, I could travel to some of those countries. That's number two. Number three is also that you can now work full-time as a PR. You know, as an international student, you have a limit of 20 hours per week and all those things, except for the exemption we have till December right now. If you have a PR, you can work full-time, you can go to school full-time and all that. There are also certain jobs you can get that you can't get as an international student. But because you have a PR, you can get that. Also, if you apply for a visa to a place like the United States, if you are just a Nigerian citizen with your Nigerian passport, you'd only get 2 years B1, B2 visa. If you get a PR, you get 10 years B1, B2 visa. You know, I got my 10 years and I did not even use it before I became a citizen. You understand? So you get that. There are also some scholarships that are exclusively for those that are permanent residents. So permanent residents is PR, because I can see somebody saying, is it public relations? Permanent resident is PR. So there are also some scholarships that you are not eligible for as an international student that being a PR allows you to get. And of course, you're on the pathway to becoming a citizen in 2 to 3 years, you know. So many other benefits, but those are the ones that...
Now, let's talk about the health, because also it's, you know, there are also juicy parts for PR and citizens that have your health insurance and everything. There are a lot of benefits around healthcare.
Right.
So that's one that also interests people that also come in with their family, children, and all of that, so that they get to know like some of the benefits. So that our next session will just be strictly how you can get PR. So that people who don't want to go through the study route, or who are already here in Canada but don't even know their left from right, would be able to delve into that.
So there are also health benefits. So you start getting full provincial coverage once you become a permanent resident. The one example I can give is if you give birth to a child while you're an international student, depending on the province, you may have to pay out of pocket yourself. But when at least one of the parents is a permanent resident and you give birth to a child, we used to joke around and say, you know, the only thing we pay for when you give birth to a child as a PR or citizen is just the parking. You pay for parking of your car. You know, it's something that would be covered by provincial health insurance, depending on the province you have and all that. Also things like buying houses, like somebody just said, like getting mortgage, buying houses, all those things become much more easier when you are already a permanent resident as well.
Great. Thank you very much. That was very, I just wanted, because I've been seeing a lot of questions about if I call my family, does it cover them and all of that. Also, when you're filling your application, don't forget to put in your family's names, because how would you bring in someone that you did not add in your application?
Right.
That's going to be an issue. So anyways, these are things that we'll discuss when we figure out a public holiday in Canada that would enable us to like sit on Twitter or Instagram lives to discuss this. But let's just quickly go to the question box. There are a lot of questions here. So someone says, is there a way a skilled person above 49 can come to Canada with secondary school certificates, and what are the things she has to have, and what step can she go through?
If you're 49 with a secondary school certificate, express entry will be a no-no because you won't even have enough points. But there's no age to come into Canada to study. I went to Nigeria in December, and I met a lot of people when I was coming back, and I see so many like mature students as part of people coming in. We've seen instances in our community that even at 50, people are getting student visa and all that. With your level of education, you can look for a program you are interested in and eligible for. That's probably the most straightforward route you can come to Canada with. You can also come through like the skilled worker visa, like a temporary foreign worker visa. If you are able to get a job, maybe you are skilled in a trade or a profession, because with those ones, all you have to do is get a job offer and an employer that is ready to support you with your LMIA. Once you get that, you can also come with that as well. But in terms of like PR, except you're applying for PR programs, also like maybe like RNIP, Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, or the Atlantic Immigration Program, those ones are not points-based, so your age doesn't matter, but you need to get job offers for those ones as well. So that would be some of the options to look at.
Yeah, thank you, Olu. And while I was just trying to like listen, I got someone who asked the question. The person said, "What does it mean when IRCC asks you for medical request?" Please.
It's good news. I'm guessing the person is a student applying for a student visa.
I think so as well.
If your application gets to the stage of they've requested for you to go and do medical, just go and do it as soon as possible. It means your application is going well. What we even normally advise people to do is do upfront medical so that you don't waste time.
Yeah, but then now that's why I'm always, Canada, they are not straightforward when it comes to this type of things, because I know, and this is not to discourage anybody. I mean, this is 1 out of 1,000 that I've heard. Someone who had got a request to submit her medicals and everything, and after she submitted medicals, they rejected her application.
Medicals too. If you fail medical, you are medically inadmissible to Canada.
No, her medicals was top notch. Like, yes. So it was just, I don't know why they even sent her in the process. You know what I mean? Like, if you know you're going to reject her application, so this is 1 out of 1,000.
Yeah.
And just to add, let me just tell you people, the day they requested the day I did my medicals, it was uploaded, let me say, I did it on Friday. And if you guys are in Abuja, you hear the story of, Canadians don't do medicals on Fridays. I don't know why. They say it's only UK people. But that day, I said I must do my medicals because public holiday was on Thursday. So I must do my medicals that Friday. I didn't want to waste time. So when I did my medicals, I agreed I did my medicals that Friday. They said they will upload it on Monday. So I went to court on Monday, and then I came out and I saw missed calls. I said, how is it best to call him? Am I owing anybody? And then when I picked the call, the person was like, we're just calling you from this medical center. I can't remember their name. That they're calling, that they just want to tell them that my medical reports passed and everything, that they've sent it to immigration. Like, okay, thank you very much. Say good luck. That night, I got passport request. That night. So it's just more or less like there are some people that it's just that medical that you're waiting for. To just approve your application. Yes. So it doesn't. So just say,
I mean, it's a good news, but I mean, it's not 100%. Nothing is 100% guaranteed. People get visa and they are denied entry even into Canada.
We'll discuss that one later, because that one is
like another issue. Because what you get is a visa from your home country. The CBSA would be the one to decide if they would let you in when you get into it. Those are like other things to just be mindful
of. So this is another question. Will my spouse get to do another PR program again when I'm the principal applicant?
So once you are the principal applicant and you've added them to your application, they don't need to apply separately for PR. So when your own application is approved, it covers all the family members in your application. And those are like your immediate family members.
Right. So this one says, is one eligible for PR after studies in Ontario province?
Yes, you are eligible for PR in any province you've studied in Canada. You just have to find a particular PR program that you are eligible to apply for. So that's a straight one.
So this question is, I'll answer
it.
Yes, I'll answer it again because Olu has said, Olu said yes, you cannot run away from it. You have to, and the only way you can avoid it is if your spouse is a
PR
citizen or a permanent resident. That's the only time
sponsoring you.
Yes. Okay. So this question is: does deed of gift from my dad pass as a proof of fund?
Yes, it
yes.
does. Mm-hmm.
I think we've answered the 50 years question. So now, this is I've been seeing this question. Let's say you don't talk about a lot about PGDs, only masters. Any hope for that?
We've talked about that too. PGDs are allowed, graduate certificate programs, graduate diplomas, graduate diplomas, they are allowed if that's what you want to apply for. The only difference between PGDs and masters, when you are applying for PR through a program like Express Entry, is the additional points you get for studying in Canada. Like I mentioned earlier, if you do a master's degree, you get 30 points for studying in Canada. If it's a 1 or 2 year diploma, you get 15 points. Every other thing is the same. The way a PR or a master's or PhD student would look for their own particular PR route is also how you would look for yours as a PGD student.
Great, thank you. Someone just asked, and this is something that we've been saying, Olu is also a testimony. As a current student, can you apply for PR? If you qualify, you can apply.
You can apply.
So someone says, can you use multiple routes simultaneously?
This is a very good question. So you can express interest in multiple routes simultaneously. As you're looking for a nomination, you are in the Express Entry pool. If you've worked for 1 year in Canada, you can actually qualify for both FSW and CEC as well. So when they make a draw, they invite you under one of those categories. So you can, but for you to submit full PR applications, you just need to submit one, because you can't have submit Express Entry, submit this one. It's still the same PR. So
yeah,
you just have to submit. But you can explore different options simultaneously, be in the pool for one PMP, be in the pool for another Express Entry, FSW, CEC, and the likes.
And someone just asked, how can someone be medically inadmissible? Although it's very, I just wanted to answer that so that people also know. So that people have...
Medically inadmissible is that there's a threshold of some certain medical conditions you would have, and what's the burden that would have on the medical system in Canada. There's a threshold that they use to calculate that. If the medical condition will cost the government more than that, you can be deemed medically inadmissible. So it's just basically having some certain medical conditions that they believe would place excessive burden on, the medical institution in Canada. But if you just do a Google search and read more on like medical inadmissibility in Canada, you see more information and explanation on some of those things.
Great, thank you. So this question is incomplete, but I think what the person is trying to say is, if I have one of my kids that's a US citizen, do I have to apply for a Canadian visa if I'm coming? So I think this is a straightforward question.
I can answer that. So US citizens with valid US passports can come to Canada as visitors. Depending on the age of the child as well, they may be able to use a visitor's record to study in Canada. Or you can apply for study permit for them, either when you get to Canada or from outside Canada as well. But their US passport would allow them to travel to Canada and get up to a 6-month visitor's record in Canada. And then they can apply for study permits if they would need that from there.
Yeah, so also like thinking of it this way, she is not a citizen, but her child is. So for her, she has to apply.
Right.
Her child is the one that doesn't have to apply.
Right.
Great. So another question, how do I show the proof of fund of someone not related to me? I will try my possible best to just bring up questions related to our topic. These are questions that we can address at the next session. I have so this is it. Is it advisable for one to apply for Express Entry and also study partway at the same time? Yes, I had that question for you.
That's a very good question. So Canada has what we call the dual intent. So if you Google dual intent Canada, which basically allows you or doesn't stop you from the fact that applying for PR does not stop you from applying to come to Canada as a temporary resident, either as a study or visitor or work permit. And we've seen a lot of people in our community that have done that. They are in the Express Entry pool. They've shown interest in coming to Canada as PR, and they also applied for study and got that as well. So it is possible. You just have to tidy up your application very well and explain why, you are expressing interest for PR and also applying for students, and how you meet the requirements of each of those categories as well.
Thank you, Olu. And we have two interesting questions that I love. Someone said, after receiving PPR, does one have to notify IRCC of pregnancy before traveling? I don't think
That's a good question. Nothing, pregnancy is not a medical condition that stops you from traveling to Canada.
Exactly.
We advise people to state that in their application if they have to do X-ray and all those things as part of like their medical test.
Yes.
You understand? But there's nothing that says you must let IRCC know that after you've gotten your visa, you are pregnant or something like that.
Yeah. And then there's something that we forgot to talk about, and someone has asked that question, and I'm glad someone asked that question. Someone said, if I give birth in Canada, will my child be a citizen, like in medical tourism? Yes, your child.
Automatically, any child born on Canadian soil is a Canadian citizen, irrespective of the status of the parents. Whether you're a student, whether you're a PR, whether you're on a work permit, whatever, as long as the child is born in Canada, the child is a Canadian citizen.
Great. So someone said, I'm based in Saskatchewan. I'm done with my program. I want to apply for PR, but I want to relocate to Calgary. Is there where I can do that?
If it's not provincial nomination you are getting, so if you get a provincial nomination, you are expected to stay in the province that has nominated you until you are eligible for PR.
And how long is that? 3 years?
Until you are eligible for citizenship.
Great.
So if it's 2 years for you, if it's 3 years, what have you?
Great.
But if you get a PR through a federal program, you can move anywhere you want to move to.
Thank you. So someone said, please, I just completed my West, and I was told my ECA, that is my certificate evaluation, will be sent to IRCC. Does that mean IRCC will write me to start my process?
No, IRCC is not going to write you for anything. You can download an electronic copy of your ECA from your West portal, and West would also send the original copy to the mailing address you've provided. It's now left to you to go and start your PR application. You also need your language test. So whatever PR you're applying for, whether it's express entry, it means you have to go and set up your express entry profile. If it's PMP, it means you have to apply to the province. But IRCC would not tell you to go and start your application. There's a question.
They only give invitation to apply if your applications, everything has been uploaded, your documents and all that, and you're in the pool. Yes. So this question is, we've answered that before, and we've talked about Manitoba and Alberta. These are the provinces that, if you have a relative or a friend, they can invite you, they can nominate you through the PR route. I think person was not, PMP is different from what he's saying, but I think I get what this question is from Sᴏᴄ. What are the best provinces, PMP, for someone who
has a relative? So it will be provinces where they accept, they give relative points. Basically, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta recently will be those provinces to look for getting points for relatives.
Does your application expire? That is your Canadian Express Class or Express Entry portal.
Maybe this person is asking about profile. So you can be in the Express Entry pool for up to 1 year. After 1 year, if you don't get invited, your profile would expire, but you can still set up the profile again as long as your IELTS and your degree assessment both are still valid.
Thank you. And also, I think we should also tell them the expiration period for those documents. For instance,
so your IELTS is valid for 2 years, your degree assessment is valid for 5 years.
I mean, we should also try and see if they can push this IELTS for like 5 years. Because 2 years is a bit, considering how Canada, especially for those who applied 2019, 2020, right? I didn't get any response, so they had to write IELTS over again. It's just a bit sad.
I saw a question here, and this is a question we've addressed so many times today. Is it possible to apply for Canadian PR without IELTS? I applied for PR since last year, January, and I'm yet to get a response. I applied through an agent. I mean, if you applied through an agent for PR and you did not write IELTS, I doubt it is PR you applied for.
And I doubt you will ever get a response.
I know. Because, yeah, go and hold your agent and ask them what they applied for. As long as you're applying for PR, whether outside or within Canada, you need IELTS, unless you are being sponsored by a spouse who is a PR or citizen.
So this question is, if I apply for my express entry through PMP route, is it compulsory I choose a particular province?
If you're applying through PMP route, it means you already have a province that has nominated
you.
So,
but I think what the person wanted to ask, sometimes we have questions in mind, but then we don't know how to put it out. I think the questions the person wanted to ask was, if I'm in the express entry pool, can I select a particular province? Me, I think what I don't do is to select everywhere. All. Yeah. All. You never can know where a nomination will come from, so just select all. It's just great and smart.
And there's one other question I've been seeing here that I'd like to also answer. The person said they got a PR, but I haven't been going. I think what they mean is that they got a PR and they haven't been in Canada in 4 years. Will I need to reapply once again? So that's a very good question I can address around the validity of your PR. When you get your PR, your initial PR card will be valid for 5 years. You must have an accumulated stay of 2 years in Canada within that 5 years for you to be able to renew your PR card. Renewing your PR card is not that you're applying for PR all over again. It's just like renewing your driver's license. But part of the requirement is that you must have 2 years of accumulated stay in the last 5 years to be able to renew that. Or if you have 3 years of accumulated stay, you can apply for citizenship. So if you do not have 2 years of accumulated stay within the last 5 years, then it means you've lost your PR status.
And you have to apply again.
You have to apply again. So
people are looking for PR. Then some people, they give them PR. They don't enter. Well, this life, balance. Someone just asked, I mean, this is a bit off, but I'm a registered and licensed pharmacist who study in India. How can I apply for jobs in Canada?
Number one is that the pharmacy profession is regulated in Canada. So for you to even be able to practice, you must have been licensed by the PEBC. So the first thing you need to do is evaluate your pharmacy degree with the PEBC. You can go to www.pebc.ca. So PEBC is the pharmacy examining board of Canada or something like that, which is the body responsible for issuing license to pharmacists in Canada. So if that's the profession you want to work in, you have to be licensed before you can, even before any employer would want to give you a job as a pharmacist in Canada.
Great, thank you. Just trying to skim through some of these questions. So this is just for other students that are here. Can I apply for express entry if I'm still a Nigerian student? What are the requirements for PMP? So we'll not talk about the requirements today because it's a lot.
There are different provinces, like I mentioned. If any province comes to your mind, just do a Google search of PMP requirements in so province, and you can take it from there.
Yeah, thank you. So another question is, are the requirements for scholarships the same as when you want to self-fund? Not necessarily. So if you're applying for, the only difference is that you don't just look for supervisors. You don't upload a research proposal. So so it's more or less like a course-based program and a research-based program. So always know the one you want to apply for. If you want to self-fund yourself, go for course-based programs. If you want scholarship, go for research-based programs. And I also want to add that Canada, when you're applying for scholarships, application for most research-based programs, if not 99% of them, open in fall, which is in September. So September 2023, application open for you to start September 2024. So you need to know that if your goal is to japa today, tomorrow, next tomorrow, research-based program is not for you because the application is going to open September and you get a response towards February, depending on the school, ending of February, most schools March, April. And then you start applying for your visa to start in September 2024. So another question is, what is the process for PR for someone who studied in the UK, and what's the route, and what is the route favorable? I have a 5-year working experience. I think it's still the same federal school.
There's no difference whether you're applying from Nigeria or UK. You follow the same process. The only people who have like different other PR routes will be people that have studied and worked in Canada. If you're applying from outside, it's like applying from Nigeria. Go on my website. I have a post that I've curated the 15 different pathways that people that have studied in UK, US, and other countries can use to come to Canada. You know, www.olufemiloye.ca. You see that post there, where I identified like 15 different routes that you can use to come to Canada if you've gone to UK, US, and other countries.
Okay, thank you. So this question is, please, what can someone do if they applied for study permit extension after the expiration date and they get denied? Then they applied for refugees and get denied as well. What can they do next, please? This person is in Canada.
They should speak to a lawyer, because the fact that you even applied for study permit after the expiration means you were already out of status before you applied. So the first thing you should have done would have been to apply for restoration of status. So that's probably why they rejected the extension. Maybe the person did not apply for restoration first, or apply for restoration with the extension. So, and then they've applied for refugee, they've refused.
Yes. Yes, and I think the reason
legal counsel.
Yes,
like,
and I also
a lawyer.
Yes, go ahead. Olu.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, you have to, at this point, it's just best to speak to a legal counsel and let them know what your options would be.
Yeah, and also, like, I feel like the reason why they even rejected the refugees, like, it seems very fishy that, because we rejected your application for study permit extension, you now want to now hide under the umbrella of you being a refugee, right?
I'm going to add something to that for those hearing us right now, because it's something we've been hearing a lot of times right now. International students coming in to go declare refugee. Canada's asylum or refugee system is not for economic immigrants. It is for people seeking protection. When you applied as an international student, you said you had a good job, you're going back home, you have relatives, you're doing well, they've done your background check. For you to now enter Canada and say you need protection, you must have a genuine case for that. The asylum system is for people seeking protection from war, terror, or persecution. So you must be able to sufficiently show that you are genuinely fleeing war, terror, or persecution. If you have a genuine claim, you can file an asylum claim. But it's not an alternative, it's not a PR program. It is a protection program.
Yes.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. And I kind of, like, I know like 2 people, Nigerians, who also claimed that they were refugees at the border. And they would tell you, okay, you can come in, they will review your application, and they will let you know.
They would like to state your case.
Yes. Exactly. So it's also very important, because a lot of people are now just doing that, and before you know it now, they'll flag Nigerians as people who just, but anyways, that's a conversation for another day. So another question is, a student coming with a dependent, what's your advice?
Have enough money to cover your dependents. If they are children, children under the ages of 18 can go to school for free, but you still need living expenses. Your accommodation options will be different from a single student. So you need more money for them, But it's not impossible. A lot of people are coming with family members and all that as well.
Great, thank you. Please, how do a family apply for citizenship? Who should apply?
Anyone who is eligible to apply between the husband or the wife can be the principal applicant, and other individuals will just be like the dependent in the application.
Okay. So this question seems, I think, is what most people are looking for. After arriving in Canada as an international student, how long can I wait
That's
to
a good question.
Yeah.
There's no stipulated time for you to wait. I've seen someone who arrived December 30th or 31st and applied for the spouse on January 3 or 4. And the spouse application took maybe 3 months or 4 months. There's no stipulated time around like when you've arrived in Canada for you to apply for your spouse. So as long as you have the necessary documents, you're good to go.
Okay, so another question is, good evening, please. Can you use a bank statement that has been printed 2 months ago to apply for your study permit?
I mean, that's 60 days ago. A lot could have happened in 60 days. So if you're able to print an updated statement, print that. Always put your best foot forward when you are making your application.
Great. I'm just trying to pass all these whole PMP questions. So another question is, if you have a master's in Nigeria already, is it advisable to use it when applying for another master's degree in Canada, or you dump it and use just first degree to apply?
Number one rule I tell people is that do not withhold any information. As long as Canada is involved, be truthful in your application. Whatever you are withholding can come back to bite you. People come for a second master's degree. As long as you are able to articulate why you're doing a second master's degree in another area, even if it's the same area, maybe there is a specific research or some courses that your other masters did not cover. But as long as Canada is involved, do not withhold any information. Be truthful in your application as well. People even have masters and come for graduate certificate because those ones are much more practical and they are able to defend and explain why they need those programs as well. So that's just it.
Thank you, Olu. Though I'm self-funding, but can I use my dad's landed documents in his name as proof of funds?
Landed documents, properties, and all that are not proof of funds because they are not cash yet. You can use them as other assets, other investments, in addition to the required amount of money you need in your account.
Thank you. So I saw a question. Someone said, good day, if my wife is the primary applicant, do I need any documentation as well?
If you're applying, yes, you have to. If you're applying as the dependent, you would also need some documents about your own. If it's maybe like spousal open work permit you're applying for, yes, you would need some documents as well.
Great, thank you. I have 2 BSc degrees, one in industrial chemistry and the other in nursing. Will I get additional points for my PR profile?
Very good question. Evaluate both degrees and you would get the point for 2 or more degrees or diplomas, which is higher than 1 BSc alone, but lower than the master's degree. So evaluate both and you get points for both.
Great. So then this is a question I've also gotten a couple of times. And someone asked, hi, please, can a visitor visa be converted to work permit?
So there's nothing like a conversion in the real sense of a conversion, but there are temporary policies in place right now in Canada due to COVID that those who have a visitor's visa can apply for a job in Canada when they are visiting. If they get that job, they can apply for their work permit from within Canada, as long as they get a job and an employer to support them with the labor market impact assessment. So it's not just any job. It has to be a job that is for a temporary foreign worker that is backed by LMIA, and then you can apply for your work permit within Canada. What used to be the case in the past was that if you get that job, you would have had to leave Canada and apply for your work permit from outside Canada. Also, if the individual is the spouse of an international student, they can also apply for their spousal open work permit in Canada when they are a visitor. Those ones do not need a job offer because they are spouses of someone who is an international student and is authorized to study in Canada. Those ones, they can do what we call flag polling because they just have to like go to a border point and do flag polling and get their spousal open work permit same day.
Great. And just in line with that, so what of those who have visitor's visa and want to maybe remain in Canada? What are their options apart from job? Because I mean, you already know that even those inside of Canada, job
Right.
application.
So yeah,
Right. So
you either also, you can apply to also study. You can apply for your study permit from within Canada, but it will be sent to a processing office outside Canada. When it is now approved, you can also go to a border point to get your study permit, or you exit and come back into Canada and you get your study permit. You can also apply for PR while visiting Canada if you, for instance, are in the express entry pool, you get your ITA, you can submit your application and all that as well. But it's primarily either study, work visa, or if you meet the requirements of a PR application.
Okay, thank you. So this question says, I have siblings at Alberta and my certificate has been evaluated. What's the next step after creating
a profile? I'm guessing it's the express entry profile. So you need both your language test and your degree assessment to create an express entry profile. So those are the two things you need: your degree evaluation, your language test, your proof of work experience, and all those other things are the things you need. I have a post on my website, www. How many W's have I said? You get confused with stuff like www.olufemiloye.ca. I have an express entry guide there that has explained the processes of setting up your profile and every other thing you need to do. But you need your language test. And recommendably for people doing express entry, the minimum I recommend you work towards when you're doing your language test is Canadian Language Benchmark 9, CLB 9. In IELTS, that's having 8 in listening and 7 in other categories. And if you have a sibling in Alberta hasn't really provided more information on how you will get points for your sibling right now, but it's something they just announced recently. Hopefully we'll get more information. Turn on my notification on Twitter and Instagram. As soon as we get information, we try as much as possible to push those information out there for people.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Olu. Olu, is your website on your bio? Because sometimes
the link in my bio will take you straight
to
so
all just go to Olu's bio.
And people have been dropping it in the comments.
Yes, I think that's the best way because they can't even copy from here. So once they go to your bio, tap on his bio. There's a link.
Yeah.
Once tap on it, you see the information. They just tap on it and it takes you directly to it. I think that's the best way because no matter how we do here, they can't copy it.
Right.
So, yeah. Thank you. And that question is, can my family do an upfront medicals while we wait for an ITA?
Yes, you can. But the one thing I would ask you to keep in mind is that your medical validity is 1 year. You understand? So you can do your upfront medical if you think you're close to getting an ITA. Your cutoff is very good. You know, maybe in the next 1 or 2 draws, you get an ITA. But your medical validity will be 1 year. And Canada, when your PR is approved, the time they will give you to enter Canada will be the expiration of that medical. You understand? So sometimes for some people, it will be, maybe it's just 2 months left and all that. That's why people try to wait closer to when they are ready to submit their application before doing the medical.
Yeah. Just before we take this question, someone asked, can HND holders apply for express entry?
Fantastic question. If you evaluate your ND and HND, it actually gives you that 2 or more degrees we talked about earlier, which gives you more points than someone who has just a BSc. So yes, you can apply, evaluate your ND and HND, and you're good to go.
Great. And also, there's another interesting question because I see sometimes when we try to fill forms on Canadian website, they ask this question. So someone said, does does cousins count as relatives in Canada?
For express entry, the relatives that will give you the 15 points for relative for express entry would be your siblings. Just your siblings or siblings of your spouse who is also accompanying you in your application. For some provinces, they allow other distant relatives, but you have to check which specific province for the nomination in those provinces. I think like Saskatchewan, for instance, would accept first cousins, if I remember very well, but don't take my word for it right now. Go check on the SIMP website. Just Google Saskatchewan relative points for nomination. You'll probably see more information on that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Olu. And this question on is something that is very common with a lot of people. For someone who has a BSc and the spouse doesn't have, any qualification at all, what do you advise?
It means if you're applying for PR, you won't get points for that spousal additional education. If they can write their language test, you get points for their language test, which will give you additional points as well. If that is out of the way, you can come to Canada to study, and they would get spousal open work permit. The interesting thing is that the job they do on that, their spousal open work permit, can also give them points for career experience, which would add to your application. So those are like some of the things to explore.
So Jared, just before I go into the other question, someone said, please, can you explain the transition from PGWP to PR? For those of us that don't know what PGWP is, it means postgraduate
work permit. The transition is to apply for any PR program you are eligible for. Just like we mentioned earlier, it could be express entry for you, it could be AIP, it could be RNIP, it could be provincial nominee program. The onus is on you to look for a PR program you are eligible for and make sure you apply before your PGWP expires.
Right. Thank you. So another question is, please, I think I missed that. So she's saying, do I need to redo my medicals because it expires a month before I land in Canada?
As long as you're able to land before it expires, you're good to go. If you're landing after your medical expires as a PR, IRCC will probably require you to do another medical before you even land. But also check they will give you a date by which you must land in Canada. If you don't land by that date, your visa expires. You don't want to be in that situation of having to do things all over again. But as long as you are landing before the expiration, which is likely going to be the validity of your medicals as well, you're good to go.
Okay, so there's another question. If I'm able to apply for a spousal open work permit for my spouse and he's granted, is it possible for him to come to Canada and apply for PR for us?
Yeah, it's possible. It means you would also already be a student in Canada at that time for them to come in as a spousal on the spousal open work permit. If they are the one who becomes eligible for PR first, they can also apply for PR too. It doesn't stop them. They can be the principal applicant. You can also be the principal applicant.
Okay, so there are a lot of questions, and they're strictly PR, PNP. God, this thing was just
we've been here for almost 2 hours.
2 hours. Do you know? I think for the system, I thought you say you're sick. I literally forgot I was sick, but it was an interesting conversation, and that's why I said PR and PNP is a separate conversation because it's going to be overwhelming if we have to do all these conversations in one day. So we could say, okay,
we can't even analyze one province in one day. Like I mentioned, like even one province, they probably have like 10 different subcategories of nomination in their province. Now thinking of all the 10 provinces.
Yeah. So I think we're going to have 2 different IG lives when we have that time. So one will strictly be on PR and different routes. Then the next one will be PNP, because PNP on its own is
a different route.
Yes, so that people get to understand that and watch the video as many times as possible as they can. And so we just have 5 minutes before we wrap up. I thought this space was actually, this IG life was going to be up for 1 hour because I wasn't feeling fine. But I mean, Olu, I like the energy. You have my kind of energy, so it's more or less like you can talk for hours. But I mean, you have to get ready because tomorrow is work.
Tomorrow is work,
You need to rest, right? But I also want to thank everyone who has joined this IG Live. So the main purpose for this IG Live was for us to know why, personally, I am a fan. If you know me on Twitter, you would know that I don't joke with Canada. If you like, tell me anything, I will tell you it's in Canada any day, anytime. I mean, Olu said he heard about Canada listening to radio. Me, I will tell you that the reason I chose Canada was because I knew that everything in my life would be fast. I knew that I wanted to be a professor, and I knew that the only country that could give me that pathway without, I mean, let's not talk about discrimination, but the only country that would give it to me as fast as possible was Canada. I knew that there's no way I'll go to the UK, do my master's, do my PhD, and get a professor position within 1 year. It happens, but rarely. But Canada, you can just be doing your postdoc. Sometimes even before you finish PhD, you get assistant professor positions, right? So there are a lot of reasons why I chose Canada. And I also knew that Canada, they give funding. It's not as much as the US. So people would have asked, why didn't I choose US? I didn't want to be in US where I'll have to resort to probably struggling to get my papers. I didn't want that. I wanted a situation whereby everything is just going big. See, you don't need to beg anybody to remain in Canada. Unlike in the US, where you might resort to some certain things, which, I mean, let's not talk about that, right? But Canada gives you the opportunity to become a student, and from being a student, you can become a permanent resident, and from being a permanent resident, you can become a citizen, just like that. So why wouldn't I choose Canada? That is why you see me always carrying Canada on my head, not necessarily because of anything, but because of the benefits of becoming an international student in Canada. I came to Canada in 2020 during the COVID year, and I tell people that I got my response, my visa approved in less than a month, but my PPR request arrived the same day my medicals was uploaded. So it was as if they were just waiting for me to go and do their medicals and send to them. Right. So Canada is a great country, right? I mean, like, there are a lot of opportunities. There are other countries that are trying to do so well with the kind of offers that Canada give. Australia, for instance, is also matching up, right? So I would advise you, don't put all your eggs in one basket. See, Olu applied to only Canada, only 2 schools, and he got in 8 years ago. Me, I applied 4 years ago, but got in 3 years ago, and I got in. I only applied to Canada. Your case might be different. I tell people, apply to as many countries, to as many schools. The reason that I don't really like Canadian schools is that they hardly waive application fee. Hardly. When I say hardly, it's because Oluyu and I have brands that we're working with right now that are trying to negotiate waivers. But in Canada, they give shishi. Like, you have to pay. You have to pay that application fee. But if you're going to schools like in the UK, there's 90% of those schools don't require application fee. If you're going to schools like the US, most of them waive, some don't require application fee, right? So you see why most people apply to. I advise people, apply to many schools in other countries. Then maybe in Canada, apply to at least 3 that you know that you have strong points. Right? Yeah. Olu came to Canada for his master's and PhD, for those of us that are just joining, fully funded. I also came to Canada to do my master's, fully funded. Before I even finished my master's, I applied for PhD and I got it fully funded. I've applied for other external scholarships because I like to apply. I like to apply. I'm very competitive. I like it. And also because there are some scholarships I want to apply for now that I have a PhD, and one of the things they look out for are the number of scholarships that you've won. The Vanier Scholarship, for instance, is also one of those prestigious scholarships that, I mean, it's better that you have more than 2 or 3 scholarships. So that was how I was packing scholarships for my master's. Even my PhD, before I even got an offer, I got a fully funded scholarship. So it's just the zeal, you being curious. I don't know if you guys joined earlier. Olu said you have to be curious, and he's a very curious human being, and that's why he had to start searching for ways to go. In short, the news he heard was we're looking for people to work in Canada. Right. How he decided to go to the study route is the one that, you know, is still baffling. But I mean, it just shows that you have to be resilient. You have to be intentional. Most of us just want to japa without doing the work. It will not work. You have to do the work, and that's the honest truth. And just so that we wrap up, Olu, just in your own words, what's your advice to? I know you've even said that at the beginning of the session, but what would you advise people who are trying to study, even if it's not Canada? But what's your advice to them?
Before I say that, I'm just going to, there are like 2 or 3 questions I saw here that I wanted to take quickly. The first one is, can a spouse of an international student with visiting visa apply for open work permit after entering Canada? We've answered yes. Spouse of an international student is eligible for spousal open work permit. You can apply for that if you enter Canada through the visitor's visa. You can go flagpole to get that at the border crossing, or you can apply online. The second question is for somebody saying, when will IRCC send them the acknowledgement of receipt? So acknowledgement of receipt, AOR, is what they send you after you've submitted your full PR application. Maybe if it's express entry, you've gotten an ITA and then you've submitted. The duration for that depends on IRCC. So no one can tell you specifically when the AOR will come. But for some people, it comes a couple of weeks or months after they've submitted. So you can check in with IRCC, you can raise a web form, you can send an email, you can call them to know what is going on with that. There was a third question. I can't find that anymore right now, but I would just use that to answer, like, what is my advice for anyone coming to Canada? If you've been following me long enough, you know I talk about the 3 P's you must keep in mind. Now, I borrowed 1 P from a colleague in the industry, so it's now 4 P's. Number 1 is that you have to plan. Plan ahead. I like people coming to Canada that are well prepared because it makes the difference. You know, plan ahead, know your study plan, your career plan, your immigration plan, the options you have to transition into PR and all that. Number 2 is follow the due process. Don't go and follow SOJ before SOJ will carry you to where you should go. You understand? And for those that are already following me, they know SOJ are fake immigration agents, not licensed. Immigration in Canada is regulated. If you are paying anyone to do a visa for you, they are either a law firm, a licensed consultant, a paralegal, registered, licensed in Canada. Number 3 is be patient. You know, people are not patient, and I understand a lot of people, things, they are in a hurry and all that, but once you sign up for Canadian immigration, know that you are signing up for patience as well. Someone's application may take 2 weeks, yours may take 2 months or 4 months. All applications are treated individually. And the 4th P that I borrowed from a colleague in the industry is be positive. Be positive about things. Sometimes I understand that, you know, especially like, let's say Express Entry, for instance, we are anticipating a draw. They did not do the draw. By the time they did it, cutoff has gone up. You know, it could be overwhelming sometimes. So fill your mind with as much positivity as possible. Every good thing will come, and we look forward to welcoming you to Canada.
Thank you very much, Olu. And borrowing that last P, positivity, I think that's what has also helped me, because I mean, people keep telling you things like Canada used to reject, you must have other visas in your passport before you can get that. That is a very big lie.
Right.
I made sure that I did not allow all those funny things to deter or to even make me feel like I cannot get it. So when you're very positive, see, go and check Mark 11 for 24 to 26. That's one of my favorite Bible verses for those of us who are Christians and who read the Bible. That is where the Bible says that you can move any mountain. See, this is your mind. It's your mind that I feel like sometimes when you say, I cannot get scholarship, you will not get it. It's just as simple as that. So once you tell your mind that I can get it and you do the work, you would be able to excel. So guys, we've stayed here for 2 hours, 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Olu. And we'll be having live sessions like this where I'll be inviting speakers to come and share their story. There's what I call the struggles. See, now today we've just been talking about the juicy part of Canada. I mean, but nobody knows our struggles, right? So one of the things I said I was going to do, starting with myself, is to tell my struggle as how I wrote my thesis. And my thesis became one of the best in my university, that professors started telling people to go and read summer's thesis. This is something that my thesis is not even in relation to their own, but then they have to read my thesis. It's been amazing, you know, considering the fact that that thesis was a struggle, right? And then even when the external examiner reviewed my thesis and brought it back, there was no single correction. That's one of the things that is shocking my university.
You have to teach us your ways.
God. That's one of the things that, you know, like I need to tell that story. I said I'm going to start with myself, and I'll most likely wait till after the elections before I tell that story. But that is because I also had a positive mind, right? But then these are struggles. You don't see people, at least hardly would you see anybody come on social media crying, right? Hardly would you see someone packing snow on social media, except they are doing it for a particular reason. But then my point is you need to be positive, right? So stick out for my next live session. I'll discuss with Olu for when we'll have the next live session with regards to permanent residents in Canada, and then the next one for PNP, because these are 2 separate routes and it's a lot. Right. We could just to discuss story. Took us 2 hours. Only God knows how many hours and that one will take us. So thank you all for sticking with us. Thank you, Olu. I know you're a very busy person, and thank you for the good work, what you do on Instagram, on Twitter. If you're not following Olu, you're joking, because Olu dishes out. Sometimes I'm like, Olu, you're even following this. I don't think you used to follow PR, all these express entry jobs, but you're always consistent. Me, I don't have strength, but you have the strength to always update. So guys, just so that you know, Olu did not ask anybody to apply for scholarship for him. So I keep saying it that, see, this is scholarship, yeah? That's where the work is. That's where the work is. So if you want to get scholarship, you have to start now.
Right.
And this is the right time to actually contact professors, right? Contact them, because during summertime, that's when they take breaks. So start now to contact them so that by September 2023, when you're applying, you're sure that you've already done your due diligence. It took me 13 months to do my research because I wanted to make sure that everything was spot on. My research was different from what I studied. I studied law, but we have never been taught indigenous law before. It is not, even right now, it's not taught in Nigeria. So it took me 13 months to do external research. So please, Olu for president. Yes, if he comes out for president, I will vote for him. So yes, thank you, Olu. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I appreciate. Thank you for inviting me to Summer. It's been an amazing 2 hours plus.
Yes, thank you, Olu. And we'll just chat privately about our next live session.
Right.
And have a great, enjoy the rest of your day, Olu. And for our folks, in Nigeria, have a good night, because I'm sure this is like 10 p.m. in Nigeria. Yes, thank you, Olu.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.